In today's show, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver says that he prefers the Trailblazers remain in Portland after the team is sold. But he also says the city of Portland needs a new basketball arena. What's going on here? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're talking about Adam Silver's comments at his press conference following the Board of Governors meeting at Summer League in Las Vegas, where he addressed the media for about a half hour and gave his sort of state of the league comments about where the league is, where it's heading, and what's next. Included in those comments were a discussion of the sale of the Portland Trailblazers and what that might mean for the future and present of the franchise. We will get into all of that because Silver's comments are telling. They aren't definitive by any means, but I do think they point a certain direction and a certain style, and you know who Adam Silver works for. We will talk about that in today's program. Plus, he talked about expansion, and I think the absence or presence of expansion in the near term within the league, or even just the general appetite of expansion in the league, has an impact on the Blazers, at least one way or another. I mean, obviously, it would impact them if there's new teams, but related to the sale of the team, there is at least something to consider there. So let's get into all of it. Let's start here. The Blazers are for sale. Team officially announced they were for sale earlier this spring. The anticipation is that they'll be sold either late next season or into the early off season, about a year out from when the sale was officially announced. And when asked about the sale of the team, a progress report, and whether the league would prioritize keeping the franchise in Portland, its home since 1970, the lone Pacific Northwest outpost since the Sonics were stolen some 18 years ago, Adam Silver said the following: "It's the league's preference that team remain in Portland. We've had great success in Portland over the years. I don't have a specific update on the process," that's the sale process, "but I know it's underway, and I know there are groups that are actively engaged with the estate and have a demonstrated interest in that team." The estate in that sentence is the Allen estate. So I think the first thing that your sort of antenna are going to go up on there is the word preference. The league's preference is that team remain in Portland. That's not strong language. That is very soft language. I flagged this on this very program in June of 2022. You can go back and find it. It's the episode that came out in the middle of July in June of 2022, where Adam Silver at the Board of Governors press conference for that particular, basically the exact same press conference 3 years ago, Adam Silver said that he used that preference language, that the team he recognized the Blazers eventually had to be sold, and his preference was that the team remain in Portland. Fast forward 3 years later, now the team is being sold. They're in the process of being sold. And according to Silver, there are at least some groups that are actively engaged in trying to purchase the team, and that his preference would be that the team remains in Portland. I've mentioned in the past on this very show that from the reporting I've done around the sale of the team, that there is no specific clause that would limit who the team could be sold to in terms of like moving the team and all of that. But no one involved directly with the process. Like obviously no one who currently works for the Blazers is like dying for them to move to Las Vegas or whatever. But like the Allen estate is not specifically motivated to keep the team here, but their preferences would be not to have like a messy sale exit, but they'll sell the team to who they sell the team to. That's like at some point there is like a highest bidder stewardship of the franchise type of thing. But, no one within the organization currently, and the league doesn't want the Blazers to move. They don't want, that is not, like when Adam Silver says that is his preference, he doesn't want that. I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. All the reporting I've done around it, I believe that wholeheartedly. They do not want a Sonics situation. The Sonics leaving Seattle the way they did, stolen because Howard Schultz was, just said, fine, I'll sell it to this the oil billionaire from Oklahoma City that it's like clearly going to move the team. That was such an embarrassment for the league, the way it was handled and the way like sort of the team was just kind of like stolen right out in front, right from out from under fans. That was an embarrassment. And the league doesn't want to do that again. And that gets us to the next part of Adam Silver's answer to this question. He said, I would say one of the factors there is that the city of Portland likely needs a new arena. So that will be part of the challenge for any new ownership group coming in, but would certainly be our preference that team remain in Portland. Oh, yikes. Yikes. The Blazers are occupants of one of the oldest arenas in the league not to undergo significant renovation. But however, in 2024, a plan was put in place to allow for a public and private partnership that would renovate the Moda Center, renovate the existing arena. I discussed this on a couple different episodes back in the spring in May and early June. But basically, like the Blazers, they had an initial ground lease with the city that they signed in 1995 when the arena was built. Basically, that means that the Blazers were leasing the land underneath the arena, but they were owners of the building on top. Everything that was up from the ground was theirs, but like the land underneath belonged to the city. And then in August of 2024, they agreed to an extension of that lease agreement that will, the initial term of it runs through 2030, and there's an option to extend that for an additional 5 years. And part of that agreement, including selling the Moda Center back to the city for $1. That is largely meaningless except for the very, very obvious thing that it allowed to happen. That is significantly mostly as a cost for the franchise reasons. One, for some tax reasons, and two, because it allows them to get access to public money without generating new taxes, but public money that would allow them to renovate the building. Providence Park, where the Timbers play in town, and as well as the Thorns, operates under this same sort of public venue type of fund. They're allowed to get access to it, and a couple other venues around the city also are allowed to use it that show concerts and stuff. That if it's publicly owned, you have access to this. And so basically, there's going to be a tax on ticket sales to events of the Moda Center, as well as parking when you park on the Rose Quarter campus, and that will fund a portion of the renovation cost for the city. So money that you're already paying without creating a new tax, but like specifically allocating that money, will be allowed to used a portion of it to renovate the arena. It's a 50-50 split. So our public money, like the public money from us, the citizens that live here, and if you don't live here, my money, no, just kidding. But us, the folks here within the city of Portland, that will be our contribution publicly. And then privately, the 50-50 split will be with the ownership group. At the time, it was the Allen estate, but it will be eventually, if this plan moves forward with a new ownership, it would be their money. So it's split. So there is a public and private fund that allows for significant renovations to make the Moda Center a really nice place. The Moda Center is not like, if you attend games as a fan, it's not like in total disrepair. It's just not on par with other arenas around the league. And basically the team has this agreement with the city that could be enacted by a future owner as well, to allow for the Blazers over the next 5 years, and then if they wanted to continue it over the following 5 years before reaching, but the idea would be to complete it by 2030, significant renovations to the arena by 2030, including minor renovations this summer, and then major renovations over the following 2 summers was the initial plan, although I think the sale of the team would put that into some question. The Oregonian initially reported that, quote, those plans were on hold. They wouldn't move forward. But to that I say, no S. Like, obviously they're on hold. If the team is sold, someone else is going to make those decisions. You can't commit to something that an ownership group like that doesn't exist and isn't in place. You can't move forward with their money, right? You can't move forward with someone else's money that we don't know who they are yet. Of course they're on hold. The whole thing is on hold. It is the type of nuanced journalism that drives me wild. In any case, there is this public-private plan in place to renovate the Moda Center. So why is Adam Silver saying that they need a new arena? Why is Adam Silver standing up in front of a dais and saying, oh, well, the city needs a new arena? I'll tell you why. Join me in the second segment. This is classic nonsense from the ownership class in the NBA, and it is a textbook North American Professional Sports League thing. Join me in the second segment. We'll talk about how they're just following the exact script they always do. Join me there. First, though, I want to tell you about OpenPhone. If you own a small business, you know that every missed call is a potential missed customer. It's money left on the table. Think about it, just from your own personal experience. If you had an urgent need, maybe you had a plumber or some sort of service provider. If the first person you didn't call, the first business you called, if they didn't answer, did you wait? Did you wait around to see if they returned your message? Probably not. You moved on. And that's where OpenPhone comes in. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app that's available on your phone or a computer. So you're not missing calls. You're not missing potential customers. You have a system in place to allow you to scale and get to the folks that want to get to you. You can manage your business calls and manage your texts all from one app. That app is on your phone. That app can also be on your computer. Plus, there's a shared inbox feature. So that app that's on your phone and on your computer is also on the phone and the computer of all your employees, so your team can jump in instantly without missing a beat. Plus, they got an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, that can answer common questions, capture leads, so your business will never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. That's OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right. Adam Silver stands up in front of the dais after the Board of Governors meeting in Vegas in July and says, I would say one of the factors there is that the city of Portland likely needs a new arena. But before the sale process commenced, the ownership got an agreement with the city of Portland that created the exact environment that allows for the arena to have significant renovations made, partially paid for the public and partially paid by ownership. The appeal for a potential new owner is that indeed the Moda Center is older, and indeed they will likely want a new arena. And at least there is a path to have those costs in some way mitigated to allow for a more appealing transition from new ownership. I would say one of the big tells in terms of ownership, and if you're worried about the team moving and relocating, is if they do not move forward with the obviously stalled plans. There's going to be some minor renovations. We're going to get new scoreboards or whatever this summer, like the end zone scoreboards, RIP, the hustle board. But the bigger renovations with the concourse and seats and luxury boxes and stuff, like the actual big stuff, that would be coming in the following summers. And one of the big indicators for what's going on here would be if no one moves forward with that. If they do move forward with that, it's a pretty good indicator that the ownership group, and again, this is under the assumption that the team sells sometime between February and July of next year of 2026. If they do move forward, it's a pretty good indicator that, this team is here for the long haul, and eventually they can sign a long-term lease with the city and blah, 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 right? But one of the reasons you don't sign a long-term lease with the city is to maintain leverage. And one of the reasons that because you're a threat to leave. The Blazers are only have a lease in place with the city till 2030, and then they can extend for another 5 years. So the maximum time it could be is 10 years from now. That's not that long in the grand scheme of things. And you maintain leverage. And the reason that Adam Silver stands up in front of the dais and says that this organization, that the city needs a new basketball arena, is to maintain leverage. It's leverage 101. It's the nonsense that North American sports teams have been using to leverage the fear of taxpayers to get more public money to build stadiums for the last 30-some years. It really started in Baltimore with the Baltimore Orioles, with Camden Yards. The threat of flight forced the public to pay up, forced taxpayers to fork over the bill so billionaires could have their big building. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, that there's like a benefit financially and economically to us, citizens of this community, to have professional sports. What there is civic pride, and it's fun. It's fun. I would be sad if the Blazers left, but in terms of like my investment paying off, if like we were to spend a bunch of tax dollars on this in a city that has real problems that need fixed, there's no evidence that it helps. It's leverage 101. It happens everywhere in sports. It's why the Sonics left. This is the exact playbook. Howard Schultz said, listen, I'm selling the team, and you have to build a new stadium here because Key Arena is a nightmare. Key Arena is no good. We can't continue to play here. And the city of Seattle said, we don't want to pay for a new arena. That's bonkers. You're a billionaire. You own freaking Starbucks, bro. And this other dude is an oil baron. You guys can pay for it. And they didn't. They left. And you know what's happening right now in Oklahoma City? Clay Bennett has leveraged the good people of Oklahoma City for $850 million of tax money. They're building a new stadium right next to their current stadium, where they just won the championship. It's a totally functional, totally nice stadium. Is it really, really nice? No, it's not. It's not. Do they desperately need a new one? No. But you know how if you can get one? If you leverage the fear of flight to get $850 million of public money to build yourself a $1 billion stadium. This is the playbook for North American sports owners. You maintain leverage, you threaten the city, you prey on people's fears that the thing they love is going to leave town, so people pony up tax dollars to build stuff, and that's what Adam Silver is doing. Boo. I'll say this. If the Blazers left town, I don't know if I would still do Locked On Blazers or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. Certainly, it wouldn't do it the same way. I'll tell you right now, I'll probably quit. It's home. The arena's 10 minutes from my house. It's been a very special part of my life over the 20 years that I've lived in the city. But I don't want to pay that money. I want my tax dollars to go to make things better in our lives here in this city. Not to build a billionaire a new palace to play basketball in. A couple things here. Like I said, you might walk around the arena as a fan and say, like, it's fine. And you're right. It is fine. It's not nearly as nice as some of the other arenas if you've been around to various spots across the league. It's just not as nice. And it doesn't have the high-end luxury boxes that allow for corporate partnerships and probably churn out some even more money on like a per capita basis on any individual game night. But the arena is a similar vintage to the United Center in Chicago, to where the Celtics play in Boston, to where the Cavs play in Cleveland, to where the Suns play in Phoenix. It is, those are very similar vintages, and those teams didn't move. Those teams didn't go anywhere. They renovated the buildings in various ways, right? To build out this new place. And there's this plan in place to build it. But it's leverage 101 to threaten us, to threaten the community that it might leave. I don't think the league wants the Blazers to move. I don't think the Allen State wants the Blazers to move. I've certainly, the people who work for the team don't want the Blazers to move. But the league will use whatever leverage they can because Adam Silver works for the owners. He works for them. He works for the billionaire class that owns the league. And this is exactly what they do. If it is determined that the Blazers need, quote unquote, need a new arena. And I think the most likely scenario is that new arena is built in another city, right? But let's say it's built here. The mess of acquiring enough land to build parking and the arena, much less the actual appeal of building a new arena is the massive real estate play you would build around it. Finding an area that's actually within the city limits that could functionally hold a project of that size while providing access and transportation, both public and private, like roads and streetcar lines and bus routes. It would just be such a boondoggle. It is so messy and it is so expensive, and the bill would fall to us. But this is why they maintain the leverage. It's nonsense. I don't think the Blazers, if I had to guess, the Blazers won't move, right? But I do think this puts into play a situation where more public money can be demanded. And that's what they're doing. The other thing at play here is there was this presumption for a long time, over probably the last 5 to 8 years, that expansion, specifically to Seattle and Las Vegas, was inevitable. I would say it is not only like moved from inevitability, it is quite frankly unlikely to happen in the next decade. Like, if it's happening, it is a slow process, and we are many years away from it. And the lack of teams moving into those markets does allow, if nothing else, a little more leverage to be exercised against your beloved pinwheels. Let's talk about that to close the show. Before we get there, though, I want to tell you, dear listener, about Monarch Money. You ever feel like you wish it was easier to manage your money? You feel like, I wish there was an app that would bring all of my various accounts all into one place. Well, that's what Monarch Money does. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're building your wealth. It's nice to have all of your accounts in one app, so you can look at your savings account, your checking account, your investments, your mortgage, your student loans, what have you, right? And anything that you might have all in one place, pulled up on a single app, right there on your phone screen. And then you can, click through and track your spending and track your savings and all of those things. What I like, though, is that you can plan short-term financial goals. Say you want to go on a vacation in November, and long-term financial goals. Say you want to have this much money saved by 2035 because the Blazers are going to finally sign a long-term lease with the city. You can do all of that at the same time. Short-term, long-term goals right in the same app with Monarch Money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, and the code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still listen to Locked On Blazers. In a show published in this very feed, wherever you listen to this, on June 13, I discussed how Adam Silver's comments at his NBA Finals press conference made the league's appetite for expansion sound, well, not particularly urgent, and certainly not inevitable. Expansion at one point, as I mentioned, seemed inevitable. It seemed a certainty. Now, if it will happen, it's like everyone's like, well, there's going to be a team in Seattle, there's going to be a team in Vegas. And now that could happen, but as I mentioned in that particular episode, and I'll reiterate here, the timeline for that has already been pushed out. And what Silver had mentioned at the NBA Finals is that, okay, we'll discuss it. We'll start discussing it at our Board of Governors meeting in July. That'll be when we start analyzing what expansion looks like. As reported by Howard Beck of The Ringer, expansion, like the idea that expansion could happen quickly seems a little bit far-fetched, and the sort of people more plugged in within the league think that even if they started the process, it would take 5 years from the word go to have a team play its first game. So even if they were to start in the fall and say, yep, we're expanding, you're not talking about teams playing in Seattle and playing in Vegas or wherever you might want them to play, Virginia Beach, Kansas City, Montreal, whatever, in until 2030 at the earliest. And that's if they press go. That's if they press go in October, right, in the coming months. And I would say, based on Silver's comments at the Board of Governors presser this week, they aren't pressing go in the immediate future. Silver told reporters, and I quote, "The appetite in the room I would define more as curiosity and more of let's do the work." And more of let's do the work. Not like let's go, like let's figure out what it is. And Silver continued saying, "We're now engaging in this in-depth analysis, something we weren't prepared to do before. But beyond that, as I said, it's a really day one of that analysis in terms of price, potential timeline, too early to say." And again, I think that also assumes the outcome of this analysis. And it is truly a complicated issue. Here's the complicated issue. As I mentioned back on that June 13th show, the owners don't want to split the pie. You could say whatever it is, and Silver talked about how they got to kind of sort out regional sports networks, and I think that's huge because so much of their income is there was a certain point when regional sports television could make money, and now they are all losers of money, and like the future of how fans get games, pay for games, all that's up in the air. So it's hard to just like drop a team into a market and say like, don't worry, they'll be broadcast by such and such, because those companies are out of business, and you need, like, the infrastructure doesn't naturally exist. But I think that is a little overblown in terms of expansion. That concern about RSNs, while real, that Silver shared, is much more about the general health of the league moving forward, period. If there's 30 teams, if there's 32 teams, if there's 38 teams, they're not going to be 38, but 32. How you make money broadcasting sports to a regional, local markets is a massive question for all of sports in North America, particularly the United States. I don't know how Canada does it. Canada might have like one channel. If you're a Canadian listener, explain to me how CBC works. But make it short. I need a pithy email explaining it. So like the actual issue isn't the RSNs, while that is something that Silver brought up. The actual issue is that they don't want to split the pie. I mentioned this on the June 13th show. This is the James Dolan problem, is that there is a finite amount of money that's coming in from the league's media partners. They signed this massive deal, right? But they've signed it and it's in place for 11 years. If you add new teams, instead of cutting the pie into 30 pieces, you're cutting it into 32. You're just getting less. And while there would be massive expansion fees, one-time payout expansion fees, to have new teams exist, and that is indeed appealing at some level, the like ongoing revenue going forward, the health of the league in general, by splitting it between some mouths to feed, is not particularly appealing. And it's specifically not appealing to places like LA and New York that could actually make money off of local television deals, whereas a place like Portland, Oregon, or Salt Lake City, Utah, or Oklahoma City, or Memphis, Tennessee just couldn't. It's just not a big enough place to make money and sell the regional television market. You couldn't. So it's the dividing up the revenue between 32 teams. That's the holdup. So how does this impact the Blazers' sale? I think it does it in two ways. One, it means that there are NBA-ready markets, particularly Seattle, although I think the Blazers moving to Seattle is so far-fetched. That's the last thing they want. They do not want to give Seattle another stolen team. They do not want to give Seattle a stolen team that has the history of their closest regional rivals. And they do not want you, dear listener, to be able to drive up from your home in Camas or Beaverton or McMinnville or whatever, like 3 hours up the road, and be mad as hell at the Sonics every night. They don't want that. That's not what they want. So the realistic place to move them is Vegas, just because of it's naturally far away. And Vegas is probably a little further away from like the true infrastructure to host an NBA team, although they do have probably a temporary stadium, certainly the whatever it's called, T-Mobile or whatever it is. They have a temporary stadium that could probably be fine. And I think what this is not the threat for them necessarily to move, like not specifically that they'll move. It's back to the leverage. It's the same damn thing. Build us a new stadium, dole out more public money, do all of these things, or we're going to move, because these teams are, Seattle hasn't had a basketball team in 18 years. They renovated Climate Pledge, formerly Key Arena, that was garbage, and Climate Pledge is gorgeous now. It's fantastic. They have an arena ready to go. They have an ownership group ready to go. So pony up, City of Portland, pay for it, or we're gone. The lack of expansion, while I think is just in general, like maybe just like the league doesn't want to do it, right? They have other plans to make money before they do that. It can be wielded against the Blazers for leverage purposes. And it gets us back to the same thing. At some point, and I think different people have different appetites. I've shared my opinion. I don't want to pay a single public dollar for building a billionaire stadium. I don't like the plan in place to build the MLB stadium. I think it's nonsense and garbage. I reluctantly accept the public-private partnership that will allow the Blazers to renovate the Moda Center. I recognize that without that in place, the chances for the flight of the team would greatly increase, and also the chances for a new ownership group to really leverage us for all of the money would be greatly increased. So I think it's a better alternative than some, and it's not technically a new tax, although I will note we could just spend that 6% tax on stuff that actually helps us. But I think each person individually, like I've explained what I feel on this, right? It's my show. I give you my opinions. I think you can personally have a different opinion about how you want your tax money spent and what you would be willing to do to keep the Blazers in town and all of those things. And I think that can be a personal decision that you act out politically in whatever way you want to do, going to city council meetings, whatever it is. But I think what this is going to come down to is the most likely buyer is probably not going to be from Portland, right? There's just not that type of big money that buys the team that's like local. The most likely buyer is from outside the city. And so what you're hoping is that that person sees the vision for civic engagement and perhaps for some sort of real estate play related to civic engagement that they could set up, because that's actually the appeal for these billionaires in this type of thing. There is a world setting up around us where Portland gets leveraged. The fear of flight is leveraged against us. And I guess each individual citizen and then us collectively, probably through the city council voting on something. So pay attention to who you're electing over the next few years. On sort of our appetite for offering public money to maintain the Blazers should that leverage be exercised. And I think that's the bummer for me. It's not that I think the Blazers are going to move. It's that I think the Blazers are the league is going to leverage the city to make us invest in something that is wonderful and fun. I love the NBA. I love going to Blazer games. Like, I would be like, when the A's were leaving Oakland, a team that I really don't have much connection to, I was sad for that community. Really sad. Like, crying listening to podcasts, sad, right? Like it's awful. It's awful to lose something that means something to you and your family, but and generations and all those things. Like, there is a civic element to it. I just find this whole obvious textbook play from the league just to be so disheartening. Boo. So I hope whoever buys the team just squashes this right away, invests a whole bunch of money and commits to the city and we get a long-term commitment and all of that, and we can wash this away. But I do think this is going to kind of this is going to be a small dark cloud kind of hanging around as the sale gets finalized, because I think there are some mechanisms that are already at work from the ownership class of the league that are making it unnecessarily unsavory for us. That is going to do it for today's program. We're not going to talk about this very much. That's what we're doing today. Blazers play tomorrow night. Their finals, they're going to play one more, but at least their fourth Summer League game. That means Young Hansen in action. We will talk about it. They play the Rockets in their fourth Summer League game, or Houston, I should say. It's not really the Rockets. People with Houston on their jerseys. We'll talk about that. That's what we'll do on Friday's program. I appreciate you listening. Come back for that show. Tell your friends about the program. I'll talk to you soon.